Hello, my name is Kristin Bosteels, and I'm so pleased to be with you today and to have the opportunity to share a little bit of my story and my journey with breast cancer. Ever since I was 17 years old, I thought that I was going to die from breast cancer. When I was 12, my mother had a single mastectomy back when no one spoke about breast cancer. It was very uncommon to hear of someone who had had the disease. So silently, she had her single mastectomy with no follow-up treatment. And she went back to her life of raising 3 daughters on her own. And as usual, she put herself aside for us. And unfortunately, when I was 17 years old, she was re-diagnosed after experiencing severe stomach pain. 12 days later, she passed away. The cancer had infiltrated her entire body, and it was in 90% of her body, covering her entire liver, all of her organs, her brain, her bones. We lost her so quickly. And that experience imprinted itself on me because I was so young and I was so much like her. Everyone always used to tell me, Kristin, you're so much like your mom. You guys look alike, you act alike, your mannerisms are the same. So from that moment on, I always told myself that that would be my fate. Day after day and year after year, I defined myself as someone who had lost their mother to breast cancer and someone who would soon find her fate in the same way. So I was not surprised when I was 31 years old to find out that I had breast cancer. I had found a chickpea-sized lump in my left breast, and I decided to break the pattern of my family. That pattern where you ignore something in your body, even though you have an intuition about it, that something's just not right. I knew this was my chance to break that pattern, so I did. And I caught it. And I had a double mastectomy because I realized and learned from my mother's experience that a single mastectomy could do the trick in the moment, but it wasn't necessarily going to keep her or myself from experiencing this disease again. So I had a double mastectomy 3 weeks after my diagnosis, and everything went great. And of course, for those of you who are listening who've been through this experience or have had a lumpectomy or any sort of treatment, you know that the recovery road is long. And that's just on a physical level. So I dove into the physical level and I did my yoga practices and I changed my diet and I proceeded on with my life. I jumped back in as if nothing happened. A year ago, I was re-diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was on accident. I had put my scans off for a little while, and I was experiencing some pain in my hip when I did my yoga practice, and I wanted to know what it's all about. I'm a yoga teacher. I was very interested in understanding why my hip was feeling the way it was. So I had an x-ray, and at the last minute I emailed my doctor and said, why don't we x-ray my chest? It's been a little while. I want to check on my implants. That's what I said, but I did know that there was some deeper knowing inside myself. And the x-rays came back and everything was fine in my hip, but there were over 100 tumors in my lungs. And immediately it was assumed that it was breast cancer. So I had a lung biopsy, and that was confirmed. The breast cancer had returned, and it had infiltrated my lungs. Now at this point I had no symptoms. I was teaching internationally, traveling every couple of weeks for weeks or months at a time, living the dream life that I created. And I was stopped in my tracks because all of a sudden I had a label, a stage 4 label, a terminal cancer label. And this was very defeating for me. And something that I realized in this beginning stages of being diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer was that I had a choice to either subscribe to that label or to be in my power and to know that my body is strong enough to heal itself. Now, I love Western medicine, and there is absolutely a place for it. It has saved my life a couple of times, and it is playing a big part in saving my life now. But I knew that there was other modalities that I absolutely had to bring in if I was going to actually survive this. That this diagnosis, this traumatic experience was not here to torture me, though at times it feels like it, but that it is here to teach me. It is here to help me evolve. And it is here so that I may share my story with others and help others evolve through their suffering. So I started treatment. And gratefully, I was able to do an oral treatment. And I wanted results right away. I wanted to know, is this working? And I clung to that first scan and those first blood tests. Just give me something good. But they didn't. The cancer had moved into my scapula. It had moved into my pelvis. And it had moved into my spine. And those moments of hearing those words sent me into a tailspin. And I started to tell myself things like, you created this. You thought about this every single day for 15 years. And then it got worse. The type of cancer that I have is hormone driven. And when I asked my doctor if I should check my brain, he said that this type of cancer, 99% of the time, doesn't go to the brain. That wasn't necessary. But I knew, I had that inner knowing again. Like, maybe we should check just to make sure. So I had an MRI, and the news got worse. The cancer was in my brain. And it was just 2 spots, 2 little tumors. And I was referred to a cyberknife radiologist radiology oncologist, and it seemed like it would be no big deal. But upon more research and more detailed scans, it was found that I actually had 25 tumors in my brain. And that this would be the most tumors that they would take by cyberknife in one day. That most of the time they would do 10 or 15 at max, but we were going to try to go for it all in one day, and we did. And I had an incredible experience. I was able to stay calm in the treatment because of some breath training from my yoga teacher. I was able to walk out of the treatment and feel relatively normal. And I proceeded on with my life. But things kept getting worse. And every scan and every blood test came back with new information. The cancer was now in my hip. It was in my spine. It was in my liver. It was traveling. And it seemed like there was really no stopping it in that moment. And I started to reflect on what people shared with me in the beginning of my diagnosis. Because once you're diagnosed, it's like you're on this 100-mile-an-hour train that you can't stop. It's like every day there's something new and you barely have time to think or process or negotiate with yourself. And so I started to call on the people who had given me support in the very beginning. And two things came up. One, from my body worker, my beloved friend, John Impey. And he had told me, as I laid on his table, newly, freshly diagnosed stage 4 terminal cancer patient, that there was a man named Dr. Joe Dispenza, and that he was helping a lot of people heal cancer through meditation and many other diseases. So, as most of you know, when you receive a cancer diagnosis, everybody wants to tell you what to do. They want to give their opinion, and it's so loving, and it's so beautiful, and it's overwhelming. And so a lot of the information actually falls through the cracks. It gets lost, it gets forgotten. But I started to listen to Dr. Joe, and I just started with some YouTube talks, and it really resonated with me what he was saying, that we actually create our state of being with our mind. And so if we can create our state of being with our mind and we get sick, then we should be able to create our state of being with our mind to become well. That made sense to me. And I believe in meditation. So I started to walk that path. And the second piece of information that I reflected on was a woman who had healed from vaginal melanoma and had been living for 12 years. She was supposed to die. She was not going to make it. And she went through 6 months of absolute hell in treatment. And she survived. And she'd been living for 12 years when I met her. And she said to me, "You've got to just open your heart. You've got to open your portal. And you've got to allow all your answers to come in, because they will. You just have to listen. And you need to let go of those things that aren't serving you. Because if cancer comes back a second time, that means there's something that's still in your life that you need to let go of. There's a lesson in that recurrence. And I knew that deep down. I really did. I really believed that. So I started to listen to Dr. Joe, and that was all great. But I did not start to do the meditations. The meditations were a little out there. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. So I kind of dug my heels in a little bit and said, oh, I'm listening to Dr. Joe. That should be good enough. But the truth of the matter is, it's not good enough. I needed to do the work. And to do the work, I needed to be disciplined. And I needed to really be in connection with my body and my mind, because the work was going to be hard. And I think that's why I avoided it. I knew that I had always struggled with meditation, that I'd always been that person that said, oh, I don't meditate because I'm not good at it. That was me. I believed in it, but I wasn't good at it. I'd watched it do its magic on some of my friends and watched how they had navigated their lives and was very impressed by them. But I didn't have that ability. I didn't have that skill. So I ended up enrolling in a course in Bogota, Colombia, his introductory progressive workshop. And I went to Colombia, and this energy, being in the presence of so many people, over 1,000 people, who wanted to change their lives with their minds, was just incredible. That energy alone sent me off on a path that I am so, so grateful for. And it was in that workshop that I got to experience one of the meditations live. And I had an out-of-body experience. Really my first one. I remember sitting there, connecting with my heart, connecting with my mind, and having this gentle vibration flow through me, where my body was moved by something that wasn't me. And it was almost this wave passing through my body. And when we came out of that meditation, I knew that this work was going to be so crucial in my healing, and that I needed to dedicate myself and drag myself to sit and be still every single day. Because my practice thus far had been one of yoga asana, one of the yoga postures, and that's what I teach primarily. And also that of the pranayama, the breath work. But the meditation had never come. So I started to meditate regularly. And I had opened my heart. I'd opened this portal to love. And there was another workshop in Southern California, just 10 days later after Colombia. But this workshop in Southern California had been sold out for months, and there was over 3,000 people on the waiting list. But Dr. Joe, in that one weekend, had taught us that we could create whatever we wanted with our mind. So I told myself I was going to go. I actually already had a ticket booked to Maui, and I was supposed to go to Maui for my beloved guru Ram Dass's celebration of life. But I told myself I'm going to go to this Southern California workshop. And so through a couple of personal connections that we had made, within a couple of hours, I was registered for Southern California, and I was going. So I canceled my ticket to Maui, and I went to Dr. Joe for a week. 12 hours a day, eat, breathe, sleep, meditation, and mind training. And the first 2 days were really hard, and my body bucked. It kicked and screamed. It was sweating. It was shivering. It did not want to sit still. Because when it sits still, the mind starts to go to the present or the future, to the past or the future. It doesn't want to be in the present moment because the present moment's too painful. But by day 3, I started to experience something I never had before. And that was a deep sense of wholeness, a deep sense of oneness with the universe, with all the people on this planet, with Mother Earth herself. I started to experience something that brought me into a whole new level of being. And I went from getting in the elevator and ducking my head so that I didn't have to talk to anyone, to getting in the elevator and wanting to just hug and love on everyone. Everybody had always told me, love is the answer. Love will heal everything. And I was like, yeah, okay. But I started to realize that that was true. And that love had to start right here. It had to start within me. So I left Dr. Joe after 7 days, profound experiences. You had to be there to understand. And I wanted that healing. I wanted those clean scans so bad. I wanted that spontaneous remission so bad. And I thought at one point, I got it. I did it. So I went home, and days later, I had my brain scanned again. I was due. And at first, the doctor said, I can't really tell if there's anything new. We need to do the detailed brain scan again. So I did the detailed brain scan. And upon the study of my brain done by several doctors, neurologists, neurosurgeons, radiation oncologists, physicists, it was found that I actually had 60 tumors in my brain. 60 tumors in my brain. And they were all over the brain. They were in the front, they were down the middle, they were in the back, they were everywhere. And whole brain radiation was recommended. But I knew, again, that inner knowing that whole brain radiation was not the way I was supposed to go. So I called my doctor and I said, what would you do if you were me? And he said, I would probably try to do the cyber knife again. And I said, all right, let's do it. So we scheduled 3 days of 2-hour sessions of cyber knife radiation, pinpointed laser radiation through my brain. And those 3 days coincided with a 7-day yoga intensive with my teacher, Manuso Manos, who's played a huge role in helping me through this very challenging yet beautiful experience in my life. So I would go to class for 5 hours a day, and then I would go get 2 hours of radiation in my brain. The next day I'd show up, I'd go to class. Then I'd leave class, 5 hours later I'd go get 2 hours of radiation in my brain. I had no side effects. I thought, wow, that's interesting. I had just started meditating very regularly, every single day, about 45 minutes a day. And at the end of that radiation treatment, I thought, all right, if I gotta get my brain radiated every 3 months because these tumors keep coming back, that's what I'm gonna do. Because I wanna live. And I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I'm not going anywhere, and I know that. So as you know, the time between scans, whether it's 2 months or 3 months or 6 weeks or whatever it might be for you, you gotta learn to let go in that time, because that is your free time. That's your time to heal. That's not your time to be anxious. That's not your time to worry. That's your time to be present. So I lived my life. Days later, COVID happened. And all of a sudden, I went from being ecstatic about this radiation treatment going well to being locked in my home with a stage 4 diagnosis, wondering if I would ever see my family again, if I would ever teach again in person. And this all was so scary for me. But time went on, and it came time for the next scan. And when I got the scan, my doctor was really fast at getting back to me, this particular doctor. Not all doctors have been fast, and that's something that's very broken in our healthcare system. But this doctor got back to me very fast, and he emailed me, and he said, "Great news. There's no evidence of disease in your brain." And even when I say that right now, just hearing those words invokes this feeling in my heart of wholeness, of oneness, what I had felt at Dr. Joe, what I had created in my meditations, knowing what it would feel like to be fully healed. I had felt it so many times that when those words came through in that email, my heart exploded. And I realized at that point that if I could do that with my brain, I could do that with the rest of my body. And it didn't matter how long it took, because time doesn't exist in other dimensions. Time only exists here. But when you meditate, you go into other dimensions, and time doesn't exist there. So I knew that no matter how long it took, I was going to clear the rest of my body. There was not a doubt in my mind. So a couple of months later, I had scans again. And this time, the scans were clean. I'd been meditating every day. My brain was completely clear. No evidence of disease, and only 4 out of over 75 tumors in my brain, only 4 little artifacts left that were all shrinking. The cancer in my lungs, also shrinking. And it was very evident to me that the meditations were working, that I did this in combination with Western treatment that actually we found out wasn't working, and so I needed to switch. So there was a very clear pathway, clear doorway for me to see that the work I was doing inside was affecting the physical being outside of my body. So I'm here to tell you that you don't have to define yourself by a diagnosis. That you do not have to subscribe to anyone telling you the amount of time that you have left on this planet and what that time is going to be like for you. You can choose it. And I've got a long road to go to be fully clear here. But I'm clear here. And I know that this is just more lessons for me on my path of evolution. And that anyone who gets cancer in their path of life, anyone who has to undergo those very challenging and difficult times of suffering, anyone who has that experience in their life has an even bigger opportunity. Because we're put in this body, on this earth, in this time, to evolve. That is why we are here. We're not here to work a 9-to-5 job and to raise our children and to be at the needs of others. Yes, those are all very important, but we are here to evolve as an individual. And our suffering is our greatest opportunity for that. So many people in this world will never have the opportunity to evolve in their lifetime. So I consider this disease a gift. It has been the greatest gift that I have ever received. And people might hear that and think that I'm crazy. How could I want that in my life? But the truth of the matter is, I wouldn't want it any other way. And this gift, this suffering that has to be gone through to get to the other side of this will help so many people. And if you're listening to this and you're in my shoes in any way, shape, or form, you could be in stage 1, you could have DCIS, you could be stage 2, 3, 4. Doesn't matter. Your story can help inspire others to realize that they are stronger than they think they are, and that they have everything inside themselves to be able to get through the challenge that is breast cancer, and to be able to help others to do the same. So thank you so much. This journey is ongoing. It will always be. And I'm so grateful to be able to share this with you all today. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day today. Thank you.